Ladies and gentlemen, today's dissertation is going to be about the throne that St. John speaks about in the book of Revelation, otherwise known as what I interpret as the mercy seat. And upon the throne, in chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, more importantly, in verse 7, John speaks about beasts that appear on the end of the throne, which interpolated is the mercy seat. And upon the mercy seat sits a bullock. And if you don't see that pictogram of a bullock before your very eyes that appears on the reverse of the $1 bill, it is because you are either lineal thinking to the point of no return, or the lighting is just bad. But it appears to me that from this perspective, you should be able to see the face of a bullock, and you should be able to see the tongue of a bullock lashing out upon its lips. And now, coming into the view of the screen without being colored is an actual $1 bill. With the same clarity, you should be able to see the faces of two men facing before and behind, which is a representation of the sixth-winged seraphim that John speaks about as a representation of a cherub, or the sixth-winged seraphim that sets upon the reverse of the $1 bill in the same respect that the bullock sets upon the Ark of the Covenant, because the entire reverse of the $1 bill is an actual series of pictograms or ideograms totaling approximately 2,200 pictographs or ideograms in the very picture that you see before your eyes. And in a plain two-dimensional view, the angels that are spoken about in Revelation are cherubs with the faces that look like men. Now these faces are the faces that look like the men that come from a Mayan or Aztec culture. Also, they are Egyptian faces and the outline of what could be Tutankhamun's headdress. However, when we rotate the bill 180 degrees, these faces become Americanized to the point where it is readily seeable, especially if you just tip the bill slightly at a 30 or 60 degree arc, depending on your perspective. If you face the bill this way, you can clearly see the outline of the faces of two men facing before and behind. These are the faces of the cherubim or seraphim that John speaks about in the book of Revelation, verse 7. Now I am rotating the bill on a 45-degree angle to the camera, and now those faces that look like a bullock or the faces of the cherub are more readily seen. However, when we bring you over back to the bill that is folded as the edge of the $1 bill, it becomes clear as day that at the tip of the snout of the end of the $1 bill is the face of a bullock. You have the nose, which is represented as the two small dots, and the eyes of the bullock that is represented as the two larger dots. And you will have to do this in the privacy of your own home, but when you rotate the bill perfect, you can see this. If you use a magnifying glass, it is even more seeable. And here it is in a blown up bill that I had blown up with a $50,000 enlarger. This is the bill, just ever so slightly folded. And the reason why I say it is ever so slightly folded is because the face of a bullock has about a 10 or 15 degree angle in real life. And this, when it's folded more than 10 or 15 degrees or less than 10 or 15 degrees, it's not so seeable, because whoever created these pictographs understood something called Euclidean optics. And look at the snout with the tongue lashing out and the horns of a bullock or an ox, thus satisfying St. John's description of the ox or calf that is spoken about that sits upon the end of the throne. Now let us talk about what is known as the throne in the book of Revelation by John as a pictograph that appears before your eyes once again in the form of the white section of the reverse of the $1 bill. And I'm going to rotate that because it's hard for me to get the right angle. Okay. The white section of the reverse of the $1 bill is what John is speaking about in the book of Revelation. That is the mercy seat interpolated from the book of Revelation. And on the $1 bill, more particular, this photo shoot that you see right before you, the white section is the mercy seat. The word 1 represents the Lord God. The words "in God we trust" represent the Lord God's first commandment. And this also represents the lion, because the lion represents the tribe of Judah, and Jesus Christ is a descendant of the tribe of Judah. This is the understanding through pictography or ideograms that tell the story without words. That is what the definition of the word pictographs or ideograms means. There is also an eagle that sits around the throne, because the throne is the white section. The throne is the part of verse 7 that John is talking about, that the eagle sits around the throne. The lion is the first beast, which we covered as number 1. The oxen is the oxen that you see by folding the bill ever so slightly in this configuration, rotating it. And now, through the use of Euclidean optics, this is no trickery, all I did was highlight the outside. Through the use of Euclidean optics that had to have been known by the person that created these pictographs, through the use of Euclidean optics, you should look that word up. This is how the pictographs have set before the people of this world 300 billion times, maybe 3 trillion times, the reverse of the $1 bill has been looked at, and Michael Fazio, a.k.a. me, is the only person on the planet Earth that has ever seen and understood the book of Revelation from the concept that the book of Revelation was created as a series of words associated themselves with a series of pictographs. And inside my book, Angels on the Ark by Michael Fazio, I describe these pictographs and how I discovered them and where I discovered them and which words in the Bible interpolate into the pictographs on the reverse of the $1 bill. A different aspect of the same 4 beasts is this bullock that's curved slightly less, but for some reason when it's on a 3-dimensional face that almost takes in the same shape, this bullock is also readily seen as the face of the cherub that has the face of a man facing in 2 directions. These are all easily verified, ladies and gentlemen. And now I'm going to show you a pictograph of my desk. This is called pictography. Jesus, Jesus, what's it all about? This is a picture of my desk, but if you were to look at it, it is a form of pictography, because there are thousands of different ways you can interpolate the items that exist on the desk themselves. This is a pictograph. Now I am going to show you, because one of the reasons that I'm here is to sell books. Because, ladies and gentlemen, this represents 35 years of research. And very quickly, this is my book, Angels on the Ark, a revolutionary new book by Michael Fazio. And in the book is 1,990 pages of descriptive, highly descriptive verses and the pictographs that associate themselves with the very verses on the Ark of the Covenant or on the throne in the form of pictographs. And then you can go and review the book by pushing any one of these 6 buttons. And the first button is about the author, and the second button represents pages 94 through 104, the Rosetta Stone, which is the $1 bill, because the $1 bill is the key to understanding the book of Revelation. And if you understand what the word Rosetta Stone means, those 2 words are interchangeable. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say thank you. I would also like you to review the book, and if you like what you see, purchase the book so that I can continue my work. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to get a bigger camera.